Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a like on this video, and tell us in the comments where you're listening from. Now, let's get into the story. I never imagined that one day I would sit down and share something like this with strangers. For most of my adult life, I considered myself fortunate. I had a husband who seemed steady, a daughter who filled our days with laughter, and a home that, at least on the surface, looked like the picture of stability. My name is Claire, I'm 38 years old, and I was married to a man named Mark for 12 years. Mark and I met when I was 25, through mutual friends. He wasn't the kind of man who swept me off my feet instantly, but there was a quiet confidence about him that pulled me in. He was tall, with a steady gaze and a smile that made him seem dependable. We started dating casually, and within a year I realized that dependable was exactly what I wanted. He was the type who remembered anniversaries, fixed broken things without complaint, and called his mother every Sunday. To me, those details meant stability, and stability meant safety. We got married 3 years later, in a small ceremony in the countryside. I still remember standing across from him, holding his hands, hearing him vow to protect me and our future together. At the time, I believed him with every part of myself. He worked in sales, nothing glamorous but enough to pay the bills, while I managed a small office downtown. Together, we built a life that was quiet but comfortable. When our daughter Lily was born, everything shifted. Parenthood has a way of exposing both the cracks and the strengths in a marriage. The sleepless nights, the endless diapers, the financial stress. It was overwhelming. But it also bonded us in ways I thought were unbreakable. I watched Mark hold Lily in his arms for the first time, tears in his eyes, and I thought, this man is mine, and we are safe. Lily grew into the kind of child parents dream about, curious, bright, with a laugh that could fill a room. She loved drawing, reading aloud to us, and asking endless questions about the world. By the time she turned 10, she had developed a strong love for school, and that love only deepened when she was placed in Ms. Roberts' class. Ms. Roberts was new to the school, maybe 30 years old, with a cheerful smile and an energy that seemed boundless. She decorated her classroom with posters and plants, always greeted the children at the door, and spoke to parents as if each one mattered. Lily adored her instantly. She came home every day with stories about something Ms. Roberts had taught. A new word, a science experiment, even silly jokes that made her giggle through dinner. At first, I felt nothing but gratitude. Every parent wants their child to thrive in school, and Ms. Roberts seemed like a blessing. I remember telling Mark one evening, "We're lucky she has such a good teacher this year." He nodded, smiling, and agreed. At least that's what I thought at the time, but then Mark began to show an interest in Lily's school that surprised me. He offered to pick her up, even when it meant leaving work early. He volunteered for events he normally would have brushed off. He started attending parent meetings with me, sometimes even suggesting we arrive early. I was pleasantly surprised. For years, I had been the one carrying most of the load when it came to school. It felt nice, at first, to have him step up. Still, something about it didn't sit right with me. Mark wasn't the type to throw himself into bake sales or fundraising dinners. He had always kept his distance, claiming he didn't know how to fit in with the school crowd. Suddenly, he was everywhere, and not just anywhere. He was around Ms. Roberts. I noticed it slowly, in little details. He would mention her name casually at dinner. Ms. Roberts asked me to help set up tables, where she really put so much work into those kids. He smiled in a way that felt different. At first, I brushed it off. I told myself he was just impressed with her dedication. But a seed of doubt began to take root in me. Then there were his texts. Mark had never been a big texter. Half the time, I had to remind him to respond to me. But suddenly, his phone was glued to his hand. I'd catch him smiling at messages, typing quickly, only to lock the screen when I entered the room. When I asked who it was, he would shrug and say work, or the guys. I wanted to believe him, I really did, but the way his shoulders stiffened gave him away. One evening at dinner, Lily brought it up without realizing what she was revealing. Dad and Ms. Roberts talk a lot when he comes to pick me up, she said between bites of pasta. They laugh at everything. One time I had to wait forever because they wouldn't stop talking. She said it innocently, with the honesty only children have. My fork froze halfway to my mouth. Mark smiled at her and brushed it off. We were just talking about school stuff, honey. But Lily's words stuck with me. Kids notice things adults try to ignore. Another week passed. One afternoon, I stopped by the school unexpectedly to drop off Lily's forgotten lunch. I walked down the hallway and there they were, Mark and Ms. Roberts, standing close by the classroom door. They weren't just talking, they were leaning in toward each other, smiling in a way that felt too intimate, too familiar. She touched his arm lightly, laughing at something he said. It wasn't a friendly pat. It lingered. They didn't see me. I stood frozen, my stomach twisting, before I slipped away quietly. I held my breath the entire drive home, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. That night, I asked Mark about his day. He sighed, claiming it had been long. Nothing special. He didn't mention the school. He didn't mention Ms. Roberts. He lied as easily as breathing, and that was when I knew, deep down, that something was terribly, terribly wrong. The night I saw Mark with Ms. Roberts in the hallway, something inside me broke, but I still clung to denial. I told myself I must have misread the moment. People laugh, people talk. Maybe it wasn't as bad as it looked. But once you see a crack, you can't unsee it. Every word, every movement, every look starts to feel like proof. I began to watch him differently. I noticed how quickly he locked his phone when I walked into a room. How he smiled faintly when notifications buzzed late at night. Once, I woke in the middle of the night and found him sitting on the couch in the dark, phone glowing in his hand. His face lit up not with stress but with something softer, almost tender. He told me he couldn't sleep, that he was just scrolling news. I wanted to scream that I wasn't blind. I started checking his schedule. Mark suddenly had late meetings twice a week. He explained them casually, as if it was just the price of his job. But when I asked follow-up questions, where was the meeting? With who? His answers wavered. One night he claimed he had been at the downtown office until 10. Yet his shirt smelled faintly of perfume that wasn't mine, floral and sharp. Another time he came home flushed, not like someone tired from work, but like someone who had been somewhere he shouldn't. I confided in my friend Laura, the same one who had held me when I broke down months later. At the time, she listened carefully as I described what I had seen. You know what it looks like, she said gently. Don't gaslight yourself. If your gut is screaming, it's for a reason. But I wasn't ready to accept it. Instead, I tested him. I suggested we spend more time together, maybe a weekend trip, just the two of us. He smiled, distracted, and said work was too demanding right now. I suggested counseling, joking that all couples should do it at some point. He laughed nervously, dismissed the idea, and changed the subject. The more I reached for him, the further he slipped away. One afternoon, I decided to stop guessing. I waited until he went to shower, then picked up his phone. My hands trembled as I typed in his passcode, the one I had known for years. But it didn't work. He had changed it. That was the moment my stomach turned cold. Mark had nothing to hide for over a decade, and now suddenly, I wasn't allowed in. The next day, I tried another approach. I stopped by the school early to pick up Lily, something I rarely did because Mark had insisted on taking it over. As I stood near the playground, I saw him arrive. Ms. Roberts stepped outside too. I watched as Lily ran to the swings while the two of them leaned close, laughing. When Lily waved to her dad, he glanced around quickly before stepping back from Ms. Roberts, his expression shifting into something more neutral. He knew. Deep down, he knew what it looked like. That evening, I asked Lily casually if Ms. Roberts ever talked to Dad a lot. She nodded without hesitation. All the time. She tells him he's funny. Sometimes they whisper, and I can't hear what they're saying. Kids don't lie about details like that. My daughter was describing intimacy without realizing it. The anger inside me built like a storm. Still, I needed proof. Something undeniable. It came one Friday night. Mark told me he was meeting colleagues for drinks after work. Hours passed, and he didn't come home. At midnight, my chest tight with dread, I decided to drive downtown. His car wasn't at the office. It wasn't at any bar nearby. I almost turned back, but instinct drove me further, to the street near Lily's school. And there it was, his car parked outside a small hotel. I sat there for nearly 40 minutes, heart hammering, until I saw them. Mark and Ms. Roberts walked out together, side by side, his jacket slung over her shoulders. They weren't just colleagues. They weren't just friends. His hand brushed hers, and she didn't pull away. He opened the car door for her like a gentleman, and she smiled at him the way I once did. But I wanted to scream, to run to them, to rip the lie apart right there in the street. Instead, I drove away, my hands gripping the wheel so tightly they ached. Tears blurred my vision, and I kept repeating to myself, he's sleeping with my daughter's teacher. He's sleeping with her. Saying it made it real, but it also made it unbearable. The next day, I searched his things. It felt wrong. Invasive, but betrayal strips you of dignity. In the pocket of his jacket, I found a folded hotel receipt. The date was the same as the night before. The room had been paid in cash. My chest tightened until I thought I might collapse. That was the proof I had been searching for, and it burned worse than all the suspicion combined. I didn't confront him immediately. For 3 days, I carried the knowledge like a knife in my chest. I watched him move through our house, smiling at Lily, pouring coffee, checking his phone, and I felt sick. How could he kiss our daughter goodnight knowing he was betraying both of us? How could he stand in our kitchen and look me in the eye after sharing a bed with her teacher? The lies stacked higher with each passing day. He said he had another late meeting. He said he was covering a shift for a coworker. He looked me straight in the eye, his face calm, while every word out of his mouth was a lie. On the third night, I couldn't take it anymore. I slipped into the living room while he showered, grabbed his phone from the table, and tried the code again. This time, I guessed correctly, his birthday, but with the year reversed. My hands shook as the screen unlocked. The messages were there. Dozens of them. Long strings of texts between him and Ms. Roberts, hidden under a false name. I scrolled, my vision swimming. Flirtations, inside jokes, plans to meet. And worse, explicit confessions. Last night was perfect, she had written. I can't stop thinking about you. His reply, being with you feels alive. I don't want it to end. Alive. That word cut deepest of all. For years, I had begged him to be more present, more affectionate, and he had looked at me with empty eyes. But with her, with my daughter's teacher, he felt alive. I sat there in the dark, shaking, staring at the screen until my tears blurred the words. That was it. The proof. The undeniable truth. My husband, the father of my child, was having an affair with the woman entrusted to teach and guide our daughter, and the worst part was knowing I could never erase what I had seen. When you discover the truth, you think the hardest part is knowing. But the truth is only the beginning. The real pain comes when you decide to speak it out loud, when you take the jagged glass of betrayal and force it into the open. I confronted Mark on a Sunday evening. Lily was at a sleepover with a friend, and the silence of the house pressed against me like a warning. He was in the kitchen, leaning against the counter, scrolling through his phone as if nothing in the world was wrong. I watched him for a moment, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might break my ribs. Then I said, very calmly, "How long have you been sleeping with Lily's teacher?" His head jerked up, eyes wide. For a second, he looked like a child caught stealing candy. Then his expression hardened, a mask settling over his face. "What are you talking about?" he said. I laughed, a sharp, bitter sound I didn't recognize as my own. "Don't insult me, Mark. I saw you with her. I've seen the receipts. I've read the messages. Don't you dare stand there and lie to me again." His mouth opened, closed. He tried to grab the phone from the counter, as if destroying the evidence could erase the truth. "It's not what you think," he muttered, "not what I think." I snapped, my voice rising. "You kissed her in hallways where our daughter could see you. You checked into hotels with her. You texted her about how alive she made you feel while I was here holding this family together. Tell me, Mark, what exactly am I supposed to think?" For the first time, he didn't have an answer ready. He dropped his gaze to the floor, shoulders slumping. "It just happened," he whispered. The rage inside me exploded. "It just happened? You don't just fall into someone else's bed for months. You chose this, Mark. You chose her over me, over us, over your own daughter." He flinched at that, finally meeting my eyes. "Don't bring Lily into this," he said sharply. "Don't bring Lily into this?" My voice shook with fury. "You brought her into this the moment you decided to sleep with her teacher. You humiliated her. You humiliated all of us. Do you even realize what you've done? When this comes out, she's the one who has to face those kids every day, knowing her father was screwing her teacher behind her mother's back." His face twisted with shame, or maybe just frustration at being caught. "I didn't mean to hurt you," he said. "That's the problem, Mark. You didn't mean anything. You didn't think about me, or Lily, or anyone else. You only thought about yourself." The argument spiraled for hours. He tried to defend himself, saying he had been unhappy, that he felt invisible, that Ms. Roberts had listened to him in ways I didn't. Each excuse landed like another knife. "So you destroy your family because you wanted someone to stroke your ego?" I shouted. "Because you needed to feel special? You already had someone who believed in you. I built this life with you. I carried this marriage on my back. And you spit on it." At one point, he dropped into a chair, head in his hands, and whispered, "I don't even know who I am anymore." I stared at him, disgust burning through my grief. "Then figure it out alone. Because you are not my husband anymore." That was when Lily came home. She had been dropped off earlier than expected, running into the house with a smile that vanished when she saw our faces. "What's wrong?" she asked, her small voice breaking the heavy silence. I froze. How do you explain to a 10-year-old that her father destroyed the family? That the teacher she adored had been part of the betrayal? I couldn't. Not then. I forced a smile and told her everything was fine, but my voice cracked. She looked between us, confused, sensing the truth. Even in silence. Kids always know. After she went to her room, I turned back to Mark. "You need to leave," I said coldly. He stared at me like he hadn't heard. "Claire, leave," I repeated. My voice didn't waver this time. "Pack a bag and get out. I don't care where you go. But you will not sleep under this roof again." He stood slowly, rage flickering in his eyes. "So that's it? 12 years, and you're throwing it all away?" "I'm not throwing anything away," I said, my chest tight with tears I refused to shed in front of him. "You already did." The sound of him packing in the bedroom was surreal. Drawers opening and closing, hangers scraping, the zipper of a suitcase. Every noise felt like another piece of my life being torn apart. When he walked past me with the bag slung over his shoulder, he paused. For a second, I thought he might apologize, beg, something. But he didn't. He just muttered, "You'll regret this," and slammed the door behind him. The silence that followed was heavier than any scream. That night, I lay awake listening to Lily's soft breaths through the wall. My mind kept replaying everything, the texts, the hotel, the hallway, the lies. The way he had looked at her, smiled at her, touched her arm. The word alive echoing in my head like poison. I felt hollowed out, like the marriage I had poured myself into was nothing but a shell that crumbled the moment I touched it. The days after the confrontation blurred together. Mark tried to call, sent messages full of apologies and explanations. He said he was confused, that he wanted to fix things, that he didn't want to lose his family. I deleted them all. Words meant nothing now. His choices had spoken louder than any apology. Lily asked questions I didn't know how to answer. "Why isn't Daddy home? Did I do something wrong?" My heart shattered hearing her voice tremble like that. I pulled her close and told her over and over, "It's not your fault. None of this is your fault." But I knew the scars would still form, no matter how much I tried to shield her. 18 night, when the house was quiet, I would stand in the kitchen staring at the empty chair where Mark used to sit. I thought about the years I had invested, the trust one had given, the sacrifices I had made. And I thought about Ms. Roberts, how she had smiled at me in the hallway, how she had shaken my hand at parent-teacher conferences, how she had looked me in the eye while sleeping with my husband behind my back. The betrayal came from both of them, and the weight of it threatened to crush me, but somewhere in that devastation, a spark ignited. I realized I could either drown in the wreckage of what he had done, or I could claw my way out. He had already stolen enough from me. I would not let him take my strength. Too, the confrontation had ended the marriage, but it also began something else. The slow, painful process of taking my life back. The weeks after Mark left were the hardest of my life. Divorce isn't a single moment, it's 1,000 little cuts, spread across days and nights when you're too exhausted to cry but too broken to sleep. Every morning, I woke up to the absence of him. His side of the bed was cold, the coffee pot was still half full, the house quieter than it had ever been. And yet, even in his absence, he haunted every corner. Lily struggled most with the questions. "Why isn't Dad here?" she asked almost every night. I told her the truth in pieces, careful not to shatter her world the way mine had been shattered. I explained that Dad had made choices that hurt our family, that he wasn't living with us anymore, but that he still loved her. It felt like a lie every time I said it, but I couldn't strip her of her father completely. She had already lost enough. The hardest blow came when word of the affair spread. In small towns, secrets don't stay secret. Other parents whispered at drop-off, glancing at me with pity or judgment. Ms. Roberts quietly resigned from the school a month later, but the damage was already done. Lily, once so excited to learn, now walked into classrooms with her head down, embarrassed by whispers she didn't fully understand. Mark tried to spin the story, telling mutual friends that we were separating because we had grown apart. I refused to let him rewrite the truth. When people asked me directly, I said it plainly: he cheated on me with my daughter's teacher. Some gasped, some avoided eye contact, but I refused to be silent. Silence protects the guilty, not the betrayed. The legal process was brutal but necessary. Papers, signatures, meetings with lawyers, it reduced 12 years of marriage into documents stamped and filed away. Each signature felt like another funeral. But with every page signed, I felt the faintest thread of freedom tugging at me. At night, I often broke down after Lily went to sleep. I would sit in the kitchen with a glass of wine, staring at the shadows on the wall, replaying every detail of the betrayal. His laughter in the hallway with Ms. Roberts. The hotel receipt. The messages where he wrote about feeling alive. Alive with her, dead with me. Those words cut deeper than any knife, but slowly, the pain turned into something else. I started running. In the mornings, the rhythm of my feet on pavement drowning out the noise in my head. I redecorated the living room, painting the walls a soft green Lily chose herself. We filled the house with plants and light, with things that were ours, not remnants of him. One evening, as I tucked Lily into bed, she whispered, "Mom, we're going to be okay, right?" Tears stung my eyes, but I smiled and kissed her forehead. "Yes, baby. We're going to be okay." For the first time, I believed it. Months passed. The ache didn't vanish, but it dulled. The whispers at school faded. People moved on to new gossip. I stopped checking Mark's social media, stopped caring about where he was or who he was with. My life no longer revolved around the orbit of his choices. I rebuilt myself piece by piece. I reconnected with friends I had neglected during my marriage. I went to therapy, where I finally allowed myself to say out loud, it wasn't my fault. The weight lifted, slowly but surely. Looking back now, I see the betrayal for what it was, not the end of me, but the end of an illusion. Mark wasn't the man I thought he was. Ms. Roberts wasn't the teacher I trusted her to be. And yet, I survived them both. That I tell this story because I know there are others living in silence, doubting their own instincts, convincing themselves that the little signs don't mean anything. Trust yourself. Believe your gut. The truth always finds a way out, no matter how carefully it's buried. Mark may have destroyed our marriage, but he didn't destroy me. He didn't destroy my bond with Lily. If anything, we are stronger now, just the two of us, learning how to breathe again, how to laugh again, how to live without lies, because betrayal may change your life, but it doesn't get to define it. I do.